My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing Matters, the podcast, and today I am here with the lovely Astra Soulfeather. She is a spirituality and desire expert, nurturing spiritual growth in women and AFAB who have spent years feeling frozen, directionless, and yearning for change experiences Astra understands well. After suffering for 15 years with the paralyzing effects of being raped when they were a teenager. Through deep personal and professional exploration, Astra developed the Higher Love approach, their unique healing model, bringing together trauma-informed multimodality tools for the body, mind, and soul. Astra's mission now is to use their work to bring 50,000 people closer to the life-giving eternal oneness to which we all belong, no matter what pain, trauma, or suffering you may have experienced in the past. So a big welcome to the show, Astra, and what a journey to unpack.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. It's really, I always love it when there's the introduction and you hear yourself described, because you're like, oh yeah, that is me. That is me, isn't it? And it's really, I think it's a good experience for anyone to have as like that mirror.
Thank you. But I can so resonate with that, Astra, because I was the same position the other week and someone was reading out my biography, which I wrote, mind you, and it's still like, oh, that is me. I forgot about that.
I did that thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I guess where to start, but have you always had like the spirituality coming through for you, or was it the events, that the trauma that you went through at 15 years of age that kind of led to looking for more and a deeper understanding?
I definitely haven't always had it, or rather I should say, I've always felt very connected on a deep level. I think I was in a way, quite a peaceful child. I had this real interest in human beings. I wanted to know how they worked. I was very much like a watcher, and I was and still am an avid learner. Anything to do with humanity. I love reading. My mum would say, you'd read the back of a cereal packet if you were bored. It was just like this constant information and knowledge. So there was always this strand of wanting to find out more. But I was raised atheist. So I was actively told that religion, faith, and spirituality are things that only stupid people believe in. That to be religious, to be religious is foolish, it's uncritical, it's illogical. And it was a very active voice in our household that really, it changed my perspective, as it does when you're raised. You learn these beliefs from your caregivers. So my cognitive beliefs were, religion is for silly people, and it's contradictory, and all this stuff. And yet at the core, I had this very strong sense of oneness, especially when I grew up in the countryside, this sense of oneness with the world around me, and this sense of curiosity about what it meant to be alive, which I now see as core tenets of spiritual practice, this desire to grow and learn and connect. So I was very turned away from any spiritual practice, any faith at all. And it was only when I was probably around 29 or 30 that I had a series of quite extraordinary experiences which woke me up to the fact that there was something there all along that I had been ignoring. And the trauma I experienced when I was 15, I was, as you mentioned, I'm a sexual assault survivor. I was raped in my first relationship. 1 in 3 women in the UK experience sexual assault. It's incredibly common. And it has these very, very long lasting effects on the body and the mind. And it was almost like that had so clouded my experience for so long. I needed to heal quite a lot of that before I could even be open to the ideas that come with spirituality. Ideas like love, unconditional love, and belonging and connection. Because when you feel worthless and dirty and like there's something wrong with you, it's very hard to actually believe that. So despite being as a child having this wonder that is for me the core of faith and spirituality, that was kind of cognitively and rationally pushed away. And then I had the trauma which pushed even the sensation of it away. So it was a very long journey to come into even allowing myself to think, oh, actually, maybe the stuff I knew as like a 4-year-old, maybe some of that stuff was right and had meaning. And I meet lots of people like that, lots of women who have this wonder and curiosity, and they've been so enchanted with the world as young people, and then life essentially just beats them to a pulp, and they can't believe in what they used to believe in anymore. Especially if people have come through a faith background, they've had negative experiences in a church or a temple or a faith institution. But for me, coming back to it, remembering it, has been very empowering, because my understanding of spirituality has come from my own explorations. It hasn't been defined by anybody else, because everybody else around me told me it was stupid. So it's very empowering in a way. It's very empowering to come to your own understanding of it and exploration of it.
Yeah, and I guess too, Astra, with that is that, there's so much of this, new age spirituality that everyone talks about and puts down. But it's like, if you can come from your own heart and develop your own spirituality through curiosity and wonder, like you talked about, it's more organic, and it makes it easier for you to discern what aligns with you and what doesn't align with you, rather than just going along with something because you were told that's what the new age thing is, or that's what spirituality should look like. And it's very similar to religion as well. Like, you're told this is how you have to pray and this is how you have to believe, whereas if you come to it yourself in your own way, it allows you more freedom to be authentically who you want to be.
Absolutely. There's so many different structures systemically which give us certainty through dogma and prescription. And just because someone's a yoga teacher and they're doing moon circles doesn't mean they're not dogmatic or prescriptive. You don't have to be a vicar in a pulpit to do that. It's a state of mind which people get into this. I was talking about it only this morning. People have this desire for certainty because that's easier than allowing the inquiry within yourself and then following that curiosity. And so we turn to yoga teachers or, new age gurus to teach us. But ultimately, a lot of these teachers are not credible or authentic in that, they haven't got decades of experience. Some of them have, some of them are amazing, and we should go and read about them and follow them and look at them. But there's this idea that you kind of, if you're not doing a moon ceremony every full moon, and if you're not at a women's circle, and if you're not saging your house, and if you're not consulting your angel cards every day, then somehow you're doing it wrong. And it's like, the single mother of twins does not have time for that. But that does not mean she's not a spiritual person or that she doesn't have faith. It's absolutely coming away from this dogmatic, prescriptive way of doing things and following, having the confidence and self-assuredness to follow that line of inquiry that says, actually, I'm fascinated by trees, I'm fascinated by kirtan, I'm fascinated by Islam, and I'm just going to go and learn and experience and see where it takes me, rather than setting out on a path which has already been prescribed by somebody else, because it means that we don't have to think.
Yeah, and when you do that, it's not authentic to you, because we're not meant to be put in boxes. We're not meant to be told how our soul can be contained. As soon as you realize that you're infinite and you can be anything that you want to be, then and create anything you want to be, it just lets the boxes fall away, because we're so good in our society like you said, these dogmas and these positions we have to be in. And it's like, oh, well, how often, you meet somebody and it's like, what do you do? And then you're like, and for me, I'm like, depends what day it is. Like, depends what hour of the day and, and what role I have to be. But at the same time, at the essence, it's like, well, I'm a soul here to empower others or whatever it might be. But that's not the standard accepted response because that can't be put in a box.
Even the question, it's so interesting you mentioned this because I went to a networking event recently and I had the worst time, and so it was a fun event, but I found people were asking me that question and I was like, I don't have the brain right now to share this with you because I'm trying to put myself in a box. And I think that's what really crushes it, is because this question is being asked, what do you do, or how do you do it, or like, what's your belief? It's because the question is already setting the goal for you. You then try and score the goal. Whereas actually, you can just answer a totally different question. I've realised this was a kind of amazing thing. It's like I could just ignore what you've asked and say something else entirely. And it's this realisation that you're asking me what I do because that's the mode we live in of production. You want me to be acting and doing and making and creating. And while I absolutely agree with you, we can create anything we want with these incredible artists of life. The joy is in being. And the true essence of life is in being, whatever that looks like in that moment. And so trying to communicate that, I think, requires a discipline almost to say to somebody else in energetic terms, I'm not going to answer that question because I'm not going to play that game. I don't want to score that goal with you. There's no goal for me. It's to be with you. And that's what I've often found that hard in networking and more business or corporate environments, especially when I was younger and I had these skills and senses, intuition, which weren't explicable, which were older than my human age. Really struggling to accept those in myself because it wasn't, I couldn't put it in a box, but I wasn't yet confident and assured enough to simply be it and let them, the other person, basically deal with that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of taking yourself out of the game, I think is key sometimes. Yeah.
And it's so difficult because, even just setting up an Instagram page, right, for yourself. And it's like, none of these boxes encompass everything that I do.
Describe yourself in 140 characters and you're like, right, well, I'm going to put the plant emoji and then I'm going to put the nut and then it's like that, and this is it. It's trying to work it out. And it is, I remember an ex-boyfriend of mine gave me a lovely notebook and he'd written a quote in the front from a fashion designer. And it said, I will not cut my conscience to fit this year's fashions. And I think of that quite a lot there's all these formats that we're encouraged to fit in. And it is important to be able to communicate in different ways. And at the same time, it's finding your path so you don't feel like you're cutting your conscience, that you are missing or diminishing yourself. Because I've got a really good Instagram bio, but every time I read it, I feel slightly sad. I don't want that. I'd rather be mysterious. I'd rather be a bit difficult to understand or have that depth,
It's so interesting you said that because when you were saying reading the Instagram box, I had this incident and my grandfather passed away last year. And I was in church and he's Italian family, so it's Catholic. And I didn't want to go up and get the Eucharist because I don't believe in that anymore. I don't believe in the practices. I don't participate. Anyway, and then I'm sitting there thinking, what is going to happen here? And I didn't even know that I had to go make the offering myself. So I'm there having this crisis of consciousness because, like you said, it's like the Instagram box, like, right? I'm like, I don't want to be in this box, and yet I'm here in this box. And at that moment, I had this beautiful message come through, and it said, tune out whatever they're saying, and you're going to use this wafer to honor your grandfather one more time. And when you eat it, you're actually honoring and breaking bread at his table for the last time because this is how you're going to honor it. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. Because it was so hard in that moment to shift my perspective. And when you were sharing about the box on Instagram, it's like, I would see it as this is my way of people being able to connect with me at this level, but I want them to come in the door so that they can see the wonderful world of Astra that's behind the
Mm.
door, you know? So instead of getting stuck on that, it's almost reshaping it. And I go through it too because, you know, I want to share my services with people. And you have this level where you have to sell yourself. And then you're like, how do I actually describe everything that I do? It's just like,
Mm.
yeah. So it's really
And
interesting.
it's a, yeah, and I love that example that you shared, that experience of a very well defined ritual with
Mm,
extremely well defined reasoning behind it. You know, historically credible reasoning that's been documented and repeated, and then how there's still freshness in it. And maybe that's it. Maybe, and I'm, you know, recognizing this now, is maybe there's an aspect where there's these formats that we're so used to that we've repeated and looked at, digital formats, let's say, or business formats, or even personal formats. We've just done it so many times. We've lost the ability to find the freshness in it and to find the meaning. So I love that example because it's helping me reflect on, you know, if I was brand new to this, what would I bring into it? What
yeah.
freshness could I find in that kind of reinvention on a personal level? It's a great example.
Yeah. And, you know, I laugh because I change as my identity keeps shifting, because, you know, as we grow, we change who we are and everything. My bio's already changed, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last couple of months because it's like, actually, no, it's different now. It's different now. Because, you
Mm,
know, as you shift through different aspects of who you are and the season of your life, you know, what you do changes as well. So it's really
mm,
interesting reflecting back when you said that too about, you know, for me, that's what it triggered with me. But then I feel this has come full circle now because this is all about, you know, loving yourself for exactly who you are, right? And embracing what you need to do to share that in the world in a way that translates.
mm. Yeah. And I have definitely resisted the awareness of myself that I am a rapidly changing learning being. So I believe that, no, let me rephrase that. I know that one of my roles on the planet is to be that absorber of knowledge, looking at these different things, experiencing, experimenting, and then bringing the key parts of it to others and offering it. But to do that, I do have to go and do it. And other people will still see me do that. So really understanding that that's just going to be part of who I am. And there's going to be people who struggle with that, who want to say, yeah, but what is it you're specifically doing? You know, what's your specific thing? And my entire, this energy within me is so much of what I do and what I am passionate about and what I offer to others is driven purely by this almost like an instinctive desire. Well, that looks interesting. Let's look at that and expand it and explore it. And then it blossoms and grows. And then it's like, cool, let's take those seeds and give them to someone else. Oh, there's another thing over there. And it's exploring and experimenting. And I've definitely met other people who struggle with that, you know, whether they call themselves like kind of multi-passionates or multi-talented, multi-potentialite is another one. It's reframing that and understanding that's your process. So what out of that are you offering to others? And to just allow any judgments that they might have and allow your own judgments. You know, I used to think, oh, like, I can't settle down. I can't pick a thing. Like, I'm always changing jobs. I'm always changing partners. I'm always changing location. It's like, yeah, wow. Like, what a cool life. Instead of maybe being stuck in a job with a partner in a home that you hate for 30 years. But it's like,
Exactly.
it's embracing that about yourself and doing that deep dive work to understand what is my method of being in the world, of understanding, digesting, learning, expanding. How do I do it? And then what from that is something that I want to serve others with.
And
And
that's such
that
a
is deep, you know, that's deep work.
yeah, and it's such a beautiful perspective on it too, because it's like you do have to do all that deep work to really own yourself again and decondition from all the beliefs and patterns and trauma and everything else like that to tap back into who you are as an infinite being and that you can you know, as you said, you're here to learn and absorb Astra and then share that in your unique way. But another person might get the same wisdom shared or learning, but they'll share it in their own unique way, because we all have unique stories. We all have unique backgrounds, unique DNA, unique genetic things, unique souls. So everyone's,
Absolutely.
has this beautiful thing. So as part of, I'm assuming, all your learning, you then pulled to creating this higher love approach. Do you want to share a bit about what that is?
Yes. So I was given the name Higher Love for the work that I do, but it's bigger than me. There's an entity that's bigger than me. And originally I was thinking it's a model, but it's not a model. It's an approach. It's a way of being. And it's understanding that there's these core principles that we can look at and understand and apply into 3 areas of life: the purpose of our life, the prosperity in our lives, and the pleasure in our lives. And I believe that we are here to share that with each other, to create that together, not only with other people, but with the entities of the planet, with our spiritual connections, whatever you want to call God or spirit or source. These 3 areas of, if you feel you have purpose, if you feel prosperous and you feel pleasure in your life, that is a life of peace and spiritual connection. That is that elevation and growth. But to get there, there's a lot of clearing out to do. And like you said, deconditioning and untangling. And there's some key principles that through my work I developed. So working, a big one, really the first one, is boundaries. In particular, boundaries with yourself. Because to get to that really incredible, expansive, infinite life, it's amazing how contained so many things have got to be. And there's Gabrielle Roth, who invented 5 rhythms. There's a quote from her that I love. And it takes an extraordinary amount of discipline to be a free spirit. And it's that.
So true.
So it's that. So working on boundaries, and that's something that a lot of women, particularly women who've experienced interpersonal trauma, relational trauma, or sexual assault, they really struggle with boundaries on a physical level, emotional level as well. So that one of those principles is really key. Another is desire. So many of us have been taught that wanting something is wrong, but there is no other way. There is no other way to do things. You were born out of desire. You got your first job because out of desire. You bring in your paycheck out of desire. You do all these things because you want them. On some level, you want something that they bring. So really allowing yourself to embrace desire as a practice. And we can do that through physical connection and embodiment and understanding what desire feels like in the body. Learning these things helps us tune into those deeper, more intuitive desires. But if you always deny yourself, like let's say you always deny yourself chocolate every time, what do you think is going to happen when spirit's like, hey, do this big thing? And you're like, no, I couldn't possibly. Because you've got no examples of what desire feels like when you fully embrace it in a boundaried way. Do you hear what I'm saying, right? I can see on your face that you're like, you get it.
I have the perfect example of this, right?
Okay, great. Yeah.
Right. So when you have children, right, there's this culture that we have to baby proof everything. So my husband and I went, all we're going to do is put the safety things in the sockets, because we looked at our stairs and we're like, it's actually more dangerous for our child to climb over the gate and then fall down that way rather than just actually try and walk down the stairs. And anyway, we didn't lock any cupboards. We have nothing toxic anyway, but we didn't lock anything. We just made a drawer for him. No boundaries, right? In that term of sense of like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. In contrast, friends of ours locked everything, like locked all the rooms, locked every drawer. So as soon as they had that drawer, a chance to get in the drawer or a chance to get in the room, it was like they've been constricted so much, but not from their own boundaries, but from like this desire and this want to know what's going on. And they'd taken themselves back so much that when the door opened to the bedroom, they went in there and they went mad, because they got told they couldn't do this thing for so long. And it was just that curiosity that they wanted to go explore that, on their own terms and their own sort of thing. And like you said, you still need the boundaries because, you still got to know that you can't jump on the bed because too much because you might fall off and crack your head open. But at the same time, you still have to have some freedom to be able to explore. And it's when you have those extreme, like discipline things, like you said, and then you get pulled to do something. If you don't trust what's right for you, or you don't trust that inner wisdom that comes through, then it's just not going to align.
Absolutely. And it's like, especially boundaries, but a lot of these concepts, these principles that I work with, it's like, imagine a hula hoop, and you're wearing a hula hoop, and it's always moving, it's always adapting and changing, and you're in a different position, but there's a clear line between who's in the hula hoop, you, and who's outside the hula hoop, everyone else. But if that hula hoop is more like a belt and it's so tight on your body that you can't move, you've no freedom, you've no flexibility. And you also, when it does expand, as you said, the panic there is quite extraordinary. And this, I don't know if you've noticed this, I've seen this a lot, especially in women, which is something like, they'll say something like, I can't follow my dream because what if I lose my husband or my home or my kids hate me or my friends leave me? It's like this idea that just by them taking a small step towards the life that they want, everything will crumble. And it's because there's been no practice of having those small desires. I know for me, I came from a place of genuinely believing that desire would physically hurt me. So if I looked a certain way, dressed a certain way, if I said that I wanted something, there would be physical implications, because that's what sexual assault can do in the mind. It can create this idea that desire, even though rape and sexual assault are not about desire, they're about power, but desire causes pain. So for me, the very first thing I did was actually through working through The Artist's Way, which is a book I would recommend for everybody. You don't have to be an artist. There's an exercise in there where she says, just pick something that's cheap. It doesn't have to be expensive. Pick something that's simple that you can have every day, that you love, that's like a luxury. And my thing, the only thing I could think of was fruit. It was having fresh fruit in the house, because a bowl of fresh fruit, I think, is visually stunning. The smell is amazing. Like, I love the colours and the textures, especially if it's any berries. I love that. But that, to me, that was the first instance of, here is something I want because I want it for no other reason, and I'm allowing myself to have it. But you have to start really small. And that's what I help people work through, starting really small, because then when the big thing comes, like mine was, get rid of all your stuff and move to a commune in Wales, or get rid of all your stuff and go traveling around the world, it doesn't feel so terrifying because you've worked up to it. But there's so many people, especially women, who some of these principles are just who I'm talking about, especially things like they don't have the boundaries, so they feel totally floaty, and then they're not okay with the desire, so they're stuck because they can't say no, but they also can't say yes. So it's learning about these different very small skills that are cognitive skills, but also then you need to embed them in the knowing of the body to do that and practice them. And then it's coming to that daily practice, which eventually over time, not very long, doesn't take very long, of focused intention, you see your life shift. But we can't get there from here. It's too far. It's too scary. It's too traumatizing. We've got to take those baby steps. And that's why it's called the higher love approach, because it's changing our mindset from, oh my God, I've got to change my life tomorrow, to I'm going to approach life differently. I'm going to take a new approach to life. And through doing that, life is going to evolve and transform into ways I can't even dream of yet.
Yeah, and that is such a powerful thing to think about, because often there's that quote, we overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do in a year. And it's so true, because as I'm coaching, I coach a lot of people to help them start their businesses. And they're like, oh my gosh, we've got to do all this. I said, no, let's just focus on one thing each day. that, even if it's a little class, like, make a phone call, or, set up your Instagram account, or whatever it might be. Because otherwise, like you said, it gets too overwhelming, because you can see the vision all the way out there. And it's that gap that's the fearfulness. It's that gap that stops you from getting to where you need to be going. And that's the gap that scares people and makes them shrink back down, because it's like, it's too much.
Absolutely. It is nerve-wracking. Like, if I think about some of the things that I've done in my life, and then I think of myself like 5 years beforehand, it's like, I would, if someone told me you're going to do this, I'd be like, no, 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 no. But you go in the flow of it. And I do think that's something that's really key as well, is we can have all these goals and we can have these milestones that we want to hit. They're more often than not, with most people, they're external milestones. I want to start a business. I want to get my next 10 clients. I want to make 50 grand, whatever. But when you take a different approach to life, when you start from within on the daily, this new way of seeing, it puts you into a flow state. And when you're in the flow state, actually things come in that are bigger and bolder and weirder and more exciting than you could ever think of, because your mind is so limited in what it can dream up, because it's only dreaming up either what it can see or what it's already experienced. I have a great story. I was in Europe and I was traveling around, and I saw that there was, back in the UK, there was a health and well-being like corporate event. I was like, that looks quite cool. I just have this feeling I should go back to see it. It was like, this is wild. I'm just going to fly back to the UK and then fly back. It's really unsustainable. I'm going to pay my carbon tax, etc. Just do it. And I flew back and I was just wandering around, and I ended up chatting to some people. We just chatted about my work and what we do. The next week I get an email from them saying, we'd love you to be our facilitator for this new workshop we're doing. Fast forward like 12 months, I now facilitate 4 or 5 of their workshops. I've done stuff for Amazon, for big companies like that. But the best bit is the relationship I've formed with the person I met is such a wonderful working relationship. But if you'd asked me 18 months ago, do you think you'd be doing an inclusion workshop for Amazon? Like, how, if you'd asked me, how would you do that? I would say, I don't know. I have no idea. But I didn't need to know how when I was open to being in the flow state. I just needed to do it and go with it and trust that my desire and my understanding and my connection to the inner self, that God self, to spirit, that was enough to then teach me the how. I couldn't do it by myself. And that's why I say it's about sharing purpose, prosperity, and pleasure, not just with other people on the planet, but actually sharing it in terms of how we get there.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And, I can fully resonate even with this podcast, so I, just had an idea, and I was like, I want to start a podcast, and like, oh, everyone's got a podcast. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to have one too. And then, I just started interviewing friends or colleagues, like people I knew, and I just asked everyone. I didn't even care if I got a no. And then all of a sudden, like, I found Podmatch and I joined Podmatch. And then I have these amazing guests in front of me, like from across like the globe, like yourself and everyone. And I'm like, how am I across from these people? Like, when I started this podcast, I never imagined it would evolve this way. And now I've got this new studio, and everything like that, because it's like, okay, spirit, I trust it. And I was sharing with Astra before we started recording that I kept having this nudge to change how I was recording the podcast and to include video. And Riverside kept coming up. Not that I'm endorsing Riverside, but that's just kept coming up. So I trusted that's what I was meant to go to. And I was kind of putting it off. And then 2 days ago, before we were recording this, the whole day, all my recordings were like system overload. I'm like, okay. I'm going to go with the flow and go back in the flow state and just trust, that I need to be having video and get off this platform. So
Yes.
And the universe does that too. Like you said, if you're in that flow state, magic happens. But if you choose to ignore it, weird things will push you right where you need to be as well. So it's interesting how it can
Absolutely.
contrast.
Absolutely. And again, it's not, sometimes, again, going back to that idea of the prescription or the dogma, there's people who say, oh, if you see a white feather, it's a good sign. And if you see a this, it's a bad sign. It's so dependent on you as a person. So I remember a couple of years ago going to an event when I was living up north down here in London. And at the time I was dating somebody, and it wasn't great. It was very tricksy, and I didn't feel very stable in it. And when I came down to London, I was thinking of this person a lot and thinking about what to do, and I should text them and every road I walked down had a diversion sign. Every single road was like diversion, 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 diversion. And I was like, do you know what? Afterwards, I was like, I wonder if that's to do with how distracting and pointless and going round in a circle this relationship is. But again, it's only a sign if you understand who you are, what's going in your life, what meaning you are making. We can make anything into a sign, but it's only going to resonate and have purpose and meaning if you know where you are. You've done that reflection, you're doing that reflective self-awareness practice, and then you can see these things and go, oh, I wonder if that's related to that, and then go away and think about it. Don't just be like, I saw a white feather, I'm blessed forever. It's like, honey, no, you saw a white feather and now the universe is like, pay your tax bill. That was the to get you to do, to try and like actually move things forward on the practical human level. I could have heard the call to go back and go to that health and wellbeing event. I could have got an email from someone and I could have done nothing because I thought I was worthless or because I thought it was too much or whatever. I could have easily argued myself out of it. So it's not enough to just know the sign and see it. It's also about interpreting and acting on it and being willing, like you did there, great example, to go, do you know what? Yeah, I was wrong. I'm gonna step back, or I'm gonna change my direction, and just being willing to surrender to that flow that you're in. You're just on a little dinghy on the river of life, enjoying it and just surrendering to that process.
Yeah, and it's such an important point you bring up, Astra, about how it's your perception and how you perceive things, and exactly what you said. Like I see crows and I don't think they're bad luck, because whenever crows come to me, it's either there's a message for someone that's passed, or it's a sign for me. And it depends how many crows there are. So whenever massive things happen in my life, I'll always see the same amount of crows wherever I go for like a week. And then I'll go, okay, this is more than a coincidence. I'm going to look into that and see what that means. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then as soon as I get that clarity, then the next step happens. It's almost like, hey, this is what's happening. So it's really interesting too. And you have to be open too, right? Like you have to be open and, like you said, surrender and be in flow, because if you're not, it's the universe can throw all the signs they want in front of you and you can just miss it. You can just completely miss it. So it's such a powerful point. But I feel like we could talk all night, but at the same time, we need to wrap up this episode. So I asked.
Well, why don't we? Let's say we'll definitely do a part 2, and then we can do that. We could do another one. Yeah.
That's it. But as we finish our time together, guests that come on the show, if they could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I would want the world and the people of it and the entities of it to embrace more compassion, in particular self-compassion. I don't always think we need to actively do the healing. We need to be in the state of mind and take the approach where healing is possible. And the first step of that for me is the compassion, to know that our suffering is real, that the problems we're experiencing are deep and painful. And if we can extend compassion, if we can extend compassion and unconditional love to that, it makes the aches and pains easier to heal, rather than not really believing or even believing they're a problem that we have to get rid of. Actually embracing with compassion that they are part of us, that we're wanting to soothe and move through. So compassion is the watchword for me.
Yeah, which is so powerful in itself. It's always like, because I got taught sympathy, empathy, and then compassion. Like if you can get to compassion, then you truly
okay, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I used to talk a lot about empathy, so that's really interesting that I've now, for me, compassion has become more compelling.
Mm. Mm. So yeah, it's really interesting, like that shift, because we get so taught you should be empathic, like empathetic to people, not empathic, empathetic. And then it's like, actually, no, you should be compassionate, have that compassion. I understand and have that compassion. Yeah. And where can people find you, Astra, if they want to come connect with you or come work with you or find you wherever you are in the world?
Yeah. Come by me. I know where you live. Yes, well, I'd love to connect with people. So I have a lovely mailing list, which I send out an email about every 10 days. And I highly recommend joining if you are keen to learn more about my higher love approach and the philosophies behind it. So the link to that is higherlove.co/subscribe. Very simple. And I'm sure it'll be in the show notes as well.
Definitely.
So that's a really one if you want to go deeper and you want to get that insight and that kind of actually start doing that reflection work. And if you're more into the visual side of things and you want to watch some videos and get little snippets on the daily, then please come and join me on Instagram. And I am Astra Higher Love on Instagram as well. That's where I put all the pretty things. So if you like pretty and powerful, go to Instagram. If you want powerful and the extra depth that social media can't bring, please come and subscribe. And then I always send my mailing list the updates on when I'm doing workshops, free classes, and of course, how to work with me as well.
Perfect. And thank you so much for being on the show, Astra, and just sharing your journey and for sharing the wisdom that you got channeled through from the entity in terms of working with that higher love. And, just about as well, I love that we went on this random tangent about not putting ourselves in boxes as well. How awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Catherine. You've been a wonderful host, and I've genuinely been an enriching and enlivening conversation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.